Good morning, Lars.
Good morning, Paulina. Another beautiful morning in Copenhagen, from my end at least.
That's good for you. How are you doing?
Extremely busy. We are doing so. For everybody listening in that don't know this already, I have this AI agency company, and today, no, not today. And I'm getting the days messed up here. On Sunday, we are four people that are going to drive in a car to a summer house in western part of Jutland, like actually the most western part of all of Denmark. And we
Hmm.
are going to do a vibe coding event for 48 hours where we're going to do a product that is completely sales ready. It works, blah, 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 in 48 hours by doing vibe coding. And
Wow.
we've been promoting this for about a week or so. And first of all, just by promoting it's just going so viral on social media. And
Okay.
then yesterday, somebody contacted us who runs the biggest what do you call it, entrepreneur network in Denmark with 125,000 people, and asked if he can promote it for us. And we was like, yeah, let's think about that for a second. Okay, if you force us. So it's going completely viral, and we have So I'm like, I wouldn't say stressed because I'm actually just happy about it, but I'm really like trying to make sure that the whole back end and newsletter and everything we're doing behind the scenes is working as intended.
Wow. And Lars, I have to say, I've known you now for about 5 years,
Yes.
and I've never seen you as happy as you've been in the past year because I always had the sense you were searching for something else in your life, and you were never really settled because you had this urgency within you saying there is more for me in this life. There is something else that I need to figure out, that I need to find. And now with your amazing girlfriend and the companies that you're currently all building, for the first time since I've known you, I have that feeling that you are home in a way, that you have really found your calling and that you're on the right path, and that the universe really shows you so clearly, yes, now it's finally working. Now things are finally taking off. Now things are finally getting viral. Things are finally getting to the point that you always knew was possible for yourself. And on the one hand, I'm so happy for you. Really, honestly, I'm so happy for you because you deserve it so much. And at the same time, I'm like, this is incredible. This is incredible. I mean, you're 50, you're 52 years old, and
Almost
that
52, almost 52, but yes.
almost, yeah. Okay, you still, yeah, you're right. You still have 4 months. Sorry. You're over 50 years old. And the fact that this life-changing events and these life-changing opportunities and relationships happen to you at a point where many people would have given up and said, okay, this is not happening for me. And right. But because you've kept pushing and fighting and hoping, and now it's all falling into place. It's so beautiful. It is so, honestly, so well deserved and so beautiful. And I couldn't be happier.
Thank you very much. And then let's just give credit where credit is due to my girlfriend. I've mentioned her so many times on the show, and for good reason. Again, I know that if she was listening to this, she would say like, "Hey, credit is to you because you're the one who's doing it,"
Yeah.
and I acknowledge that. But she has like opened my mind to so many things in just the 1.5 years I've known her.
Yeah.
But all back to what you're saying, Paulina, and thank you very much, like for saying this. I would also say that I also personally get that feeling. I'm not there yet. There's a couple of things that still needs to go into place, and I know when they go into place, it's going to be something else that I'm going to strive for, and so on. Yes, exactly. We're going to skyrocket. But I actually also feel more home than I have done in so many years. I feel so much more comfortable with things than I've done in so many years, and
Yeah.
it's just such a great feeling.
Mm. I love this for you. I really do.
Thank you. And Paulina, we are going way off topic from the beginning. I
Don't
love it.
we always do, but never
Yes, we
this
do.
early on.
No, exactly. Okay, Paulina, should we get ready and do the today's episode?
Yes, please.
Okay, let's do this. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to
Cultures from Hell.
I'm Lars, and today we are exploring one of the most misunderstood roles in any organization, the middle manager. Ooh. While culture is often seen as a top-down mandate, the reality is this. Team leads shape culture every single day in the moments that matter. So to unpack this, as always, as you've heard in the beginning, I'm joined by Paulina, co-host and co-founder of Culture Code Foundation. And together we'll explore the tactical ways middle managers can actually lead from the middle. Let's do this, Paulina.
Absolutely. Super excited.
Okay, Paulina, when did you first realize that middle managers, not executive, often define the real culture of a company?
Mm. Honestly, I think I knew that way before I could actually put words to that, because I kept running into what is in the literature and in the research is known as a pocket of excellence. Small teams or departments that are simply different than the rest of a company. They will be more honest, they will be more alive, they will perform better. And they also, and at the same time, they would argue quite a lot, but in a very kind, candid, and constructive way. So if you would walk into one of their meetings, you could literally feel the psychological safety in the room. You could feel that they dare to speak up, that they dare to voice ideas and opinions, even if they were completely different than the majority opinion. Right? So there was no fake harmony. They would actively challenge each other like crazy. But that came from a place of trust, not a place of ego. And most of the time, those teams weren't led by executives, they were led by middle managers, team leads, usually with zero formal power or very little formal power, but a huge cultural influence that could actually also go above their own team, and simply by the presence of the team lead and the way they showed up in also team lead meetings influence other teams by yeah, in a kind of viral way. So and then later on, when I started really studying organizations and not just trusting on my own experience, right, it became so clear, and the research shows it time and time again, that culture doesn't trickle down from the top. Obviously the top is super helpful and it is important, but it emerges usually in other places if the middle managers are aware of that and are also willing and enough to go against the overall culture in a way, or to expand on the. I mean, I've also seen companies that had officially had a really, really strong culture on paper, and had used to have that in a lived way as well. But then things shifted and changed, and the culture became lessened and weakened and trickled out. But certain pockets of excellence managed to keep the old culture alive, at least for their small circle of influence. So, from my perspective, middle managers tend to underestimate greatly how much power and influence they have when it comes to culture.
Yeah, this kind of leads me to the next question. So, like, what's something most people completely misunderstand about the role of middle manager in shaping cultures? And before you answer it, I would just, from a personal perspective, send out like kudos to a lot of middle managers, because in Denmark, at
Yes.
least, we actually tend to make a little bit fun about them.
Okay.
Like, for example, paddle tennis is like the big thing in a lot of countries right now. In Denmark, we call it middle manager ping pong. So we tend to make like a little bit, but they have
Okay.
so much power in coming to shaping culture. So again, what's the most misunderstood thing about the role of middle manager in shaping cultures?
Exactly that they are powerless, that they are just there in a company to implement someone else's vision, or that they are just there to oversee the actual work that it's being done. And from my perspective, that's a lie. And because people miss that middle managers have the most consistent face time with their teams. They are the ones people go to when they are unsure, upset, or ambitious. They are the ones that shape how the company values actually show up in everyday situations, or don't show up, right? um, Executives should set the tone for any culture. That's very true, but that doesn't always necessarily happen. And I've heard so many middle managers telling me, yeah, but what am I supposed to do with the culture if the executives don't really live it? And there is truth in that, right? I mean, in an ideal world, obviously, the executives are living, breathing examples of the strong culture in a company. And obviously, my work is very much dedicated to making that happen. But I'm a realist as well, and I do know that this is just simply not always true. And when middle managers tell me, okay, why should I move or why should I change anything if the top bench isn't doing anything about it, then I keep telling them, and this is a real appeal at this in this podcast here as well. Because you do have so much power to shape culture, to shape those pockets of excellence, you can transform a company from the inside out. Because if enough middle managers do that consistently with their teams, then these new norms, these new behaviors, these new standards of how to behave can become viral within a company. And yes, it might happen that you never infect, in quotation marks, the topmost executives in a company. Could happen, but that doesn't mean that you can't protect, shape, and then protect the kind of culture that you want to see. As a middle manager, you have the beautiful position to actually be able to shape things, right? So, yes, ideally, the executive sets the tone of the culture, but definitely, in any case, middle managers set the tempo. And they are the ones to decide if what you executing basically becomes music or simple noise.
I kind of see them as kind of let's call it a filter
Yeah.
between like the executives and let's say that the workers on the floor. So they kind of the filter in between those, right? And like you're
Mm-hmm.
saying, like if the executives is not able to perform a real structured, nourished culture, then the middle manager have that power to actually go in and implement that in their team at least, right?
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
And also influence it like across the board in like other middle managers, which then can influence their team and so on. I think it like they have so much power that is not recognized, but I'm pretty sure we're going to come back to that.
And it's not only that it's not recognized overall in the organization, right? Many middle managers themselves don't even recognize that they have this kind of influence and power, that they can have that influence and power if they adopt it, if they decide to
And
take it
it
on.
and if you had to kind of describe this unique cultural power middle managers have in one sentence, what would that be? What would it be?
In one sentence. now you're
Yes, go,
now
go,
you're
go.
now you're challenging the person that really wants to go off script all the time. One sentence. I would say that they make the invisible visible by whatever they tolerate, reward, ignore, or confront in the moment.
Period.
I mean, I use a lot of
Cool.
I use a lot of comma in there to get as much information as possible into that one sentence.
And I was just waiting for you to just continue because I'm so used to that. Okay, Paulina,
You gave
you
me an
often
exercise. You gave me
yes,
challenge.
and you did it to perfection. You often say culture is shaped in the moments, not the mandates.
Hmm.
Can you share an example of that in practice?
Yeah. So for me, um, as a middle manager, you're confronted with so many small moments that can make or break the culture in your team, and it always so you have to be very conscious about how you show up and how you react to certain situation or to any given situation, because you will be confronted with so many unexpected situations in the course of a single day, right? And for me, one of the most crucial skills that a manager, any manager, but middle managers specifically, need to learn is to choose their reaction to certain situations consciously. We all know that about 95% of what we're doing, what we're thinking, how we're acting is actually subconsciously driven and not a conscious choice or decision that we're making. And when you're interacting with people, with any kind of people, like it could also be in your role as a parent or in your role as in a relationship, right? We will act out of biases, out of triggers, out of old emotions or memories or whatnot. And especially in your work life, it is because you're a professional there, right? It becomes super crucial to pause in the moment, understand what's going on within you, and understand that not everything that's going on inside you is going to help the situation. And take a little step back, a tiny step back, create a little bit of space for yourself to understand what is happening in the moment and what kind of reaction is going to help the situation to move forward, right? And that is a very difficult skill to learn because it requires constant self reflection. It requires a very high level of self awareness that not just managers, but people in general are missing on a broad scale. And that will always lead to, or often lead to, micro moments that harm the relationship between you and your team, rather than move it forward and help it grow. And let me make it really, really concrete here with a small story, right? Imagine a junior colleague sharing an idea in a meeting, and the idea falls completely flat. And then there is silence in the room, and nobody is really reacting, and the manager has to decide really, really quickly how to react to the situation. Does he move on? Does he pause and say, let's go back to that, I want to hear it again? That tiny moment, that is culture work par excellence. Those are the moments that tell us as a team if it is safe to speak up or not. So the good manager, self-reflective, very aware manager, would realize that this is a moment that can drive or hurt the culture, and then choose the second reaction, right? Okay, I've never thought about it this way. Let us hear it again. Tell me more about it. And if the trust level is very high, then you would also say, okay, let's pick this idea apart, not because it sucks, but because we want to make it even better. And then there are the bigger moments, right? The very crucial moments that really, really influence how the team sees you, how the team understands, and really, in a very, very tangible way, if you do protect the culture and the tone and the behaviors and values that you're setting for the team. Right? As a concrete example from my own career, a couple of years ago, I was asked to let someone go for underperformance. And it would have been super, super easy to just follow the script. I'd been in the role only recently. I could have just said, okay, I follow along. This is the mandate from above. I'll do this, la di la la. But I also knew that this person had been performing really, really well just a few months ago, half a year ago. And I really wanted to understand what was going on here, why the performance had dropped so dramatically. And obviously, they knew how to do their job. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been performing really well half a year ago. So I decided to develop a development plan for this person and follow along with them on this plan. And we worked really hard together. I spent a lot of time coaching them. It took a lot of time and effort from my end to really go into the nitty gritty with them, but they turned things around. And I'm convinced that my decision to not just simply let go of them, but help them get back to their original level of performance, changed how the team saw me and how the team acted within each other. Because my behavior, my decision clearly signaled I don't just talk about investing in people, I actually do invest in people's growth, especially when they are struggling. And it showed them that you can really turn things around when you're working hard. And people in the other people in my team took way more ownership of their own development moving forward from that moment. So there are those really tiny things that make a huge difference and that showcase how you live values and cultures. And then there are very, very big things that can have like either it's like a tiny little drop of water that feeds the plant that you're trying to grow, and the other one is, I would say, maybe. Oh my God, I'm really not a plant person. What, what is something big that makes plants really grow? I don't know. Let's move on from this really bad
Yeah,
imagery.
let's move. But
Let's
then let
just
me
move on.
tell let me tell a kind of a similar story. Again, I know that I bring in a lot of analogies about like my training and so
Hmm.
on, right?
Yeah.
And I coach about 3 classes a week in CrossFit and functional training.
Hmm.
And I had this, again, I'm going to call her tiny because she's like 45, 50 kilos, like a tiny Indian girl that moved to Denmark. She started coming to my classes. She was extremely shy and just like, like kind of excusing herself for not doing everything correct or something like that. And I was like, just smiling and saying like, oh, it's okay. And we, she became extremely strong within like 6 months or something like that. Still just smiling, this tiny person, but really, really strong.
Yeah.
And she actually told me, we had a Christmas lunch a couple of weeks ago, and she actually told me that Christmas lunch, she works as an auditor in a very big company. And she actually told me that when she came to Denmark and started working, um, she was like afraid of speaking up at work, especially she felt like her manager was just speaking too much Danish. She doesn't speak Danish and so on. And she said that 2 months after starting coming to my classes and starting feeling strong herself, she actually managed to go into the manager and say like, you need to start speaking Danish. Oh, sorry, English in
Yeah.
our meetings. And the manager just said like, but I am. And she said to him, no, you're not. You have to do it. I feel left out. And she said, like,
Good
I've
for
never done this in
her.
my life. I've never done it.
Oh,
And I felt so powerful. And so you can just see her smile. And she said, from that day on, everybody spoke English, right? Suddenly, right? And
yeah.
and just back to your point here, Paulina, that I have about 18 people in each class, right? And
Hmm.
I could just go in and say, like, everybody, today we do this, and
Yeah.
then don't do anything, get my money, and go home. But having to like notice people that are standing out or might not feel comfortable and so on, and invest in them and go up and say, like, okay, maybe do this exercise this way, or maybe put on some extra kilos. You can do it, right? And so on. It just has so much impact. I was almost crying when she told me that story.
Oh,
It was like, do I have that impact on you?
yes.
Wow.
And
Right.
I really love the story because it not only does it show that if you see the individual potential in any person, no matter what they bring to the table at the point, right, and you
Mm-hmm.
um, support them in a way that fits their individual situation or their individual needs, that can have a huge impact, right? So you have that impact as a coach, right, in
Mm-hmm.
that moment, which is beautiful. And at the same time, and what I also love about the story, because it shows that every single person in a company, no matter how much formal power they have, has the opportunity to change things. She is an individual contributor. She doesn't have any formal power in her company whatsoever. And because she spoke up for her values and for what mattered to her and for being included and for being seen, and her manager thought he was doing all of that, but she made him realize that he didn't. And he changed his
Mm-hmm.
behavior and he changed the entire behavior of the team afterwards. That is so crucial. That is incredibly powerful that she and this, please, for everyone listening out there, please remember that every single person in a company can change the company culture, and
But but
nobody
but,
did.
but Pauline, for me, that is one thing. So let me just give a shout out to everybody listening in out there, because for me that was kind of a wake up moment. Because again, like
Yeah.
I'm going to do this in quotation mark. I just show up and do these classes, right? I know I'm a
Yeah.
great coach, but for me it's just a side job. But it just made me realize that every single one that comes to these classes, I have immense
Yeah.
power
Yeah.
on how they live their lives.
Yes.
So everybody
Absolutely.
remember that no matter, like if you're a middle manager in a company and maybe you say like, okay, people come to work and I only have them for these like 7 hours a day and so on. No, because what you do reflects on how they go back home and talk to their wife or husband or kids, friends and so
Yes.
on, how
Yes.
well they sleep at night, if they have um, the extra energy to go train after work or go do something with their kids or go to the playground. You have so much power. Come
Yeah.
on,
And
remember.
and actually, let us be really absolutely clear here. Everyone out there has the power to influence someone's day in a good or a bad way. How in any interaction you have with a person, the way you talk to the cashier in the supermarket, the way you behave towards other people in the subway, the way you treat people that just cross your path on your way to work. Do you bump into them? Do you scold at them? Do you just frown at them, or do you give them a smile? All of those tiny micro moments in human interaction have an impact on the person that we're interacting with, and we keep forgetting that. And I think if we all would remember that, our world could be a much more positive and beautiful place for anyone there if we were aware of the impact and power that every single one of us has to change the day or even the life of a person for good.
Paulina, you and I, when we leave this recording, we're doing this in the morning, early in the morning, right?
Yeah.
You and I, when we leave this recording today, we have to promise ourselves that each person we interact with for the remainder of the day, we have to look him in the eye, just passing them on the street, look him in the eye and give them a big smile.
That's a really great. Let's do it.
Let's
Absolutely.
do it. Okay,
Let,
back on the topic.
let's back.
Paulina, how does it feel for middle managers when they and we just talked about this like power, right? When does
Mhm.
it feel for middle managers when they suddenly recognize that they actually hold this influence on people?
I think for most middle managers, it's a mixture of feeling exhilarating and powerful and terrifying at the same time. Um, because you start to realize that you've basically been driving the car the whole time, even though you were thinking you were maybe just a backseat passenger, right? And once managers realize that they can shape culture, not only that they can, they always do, right? They just don't always do it consciously, but they always do it anyway. Um, and when they realize that they can influence it consciously and intentionally, then most of them rise to the occasion. They can obviously there can also be moments of despair or downfall when when they feel like, okay, this is not doing enough and I can't fight the bigger thing that's happening in the company. But usually, and those moments are very legit, by the way, absolutely legit. But if they keep memorizing this, I can shape something for the better, and it is actually my job to do so, then they stop waiting for permission to change something and they start asking better questions. They start showing up in a different way for their team. They get braver. And my gut feeling tells me when I interact with managers in those moments, in those switchboard moments, is that that's where the fun actually begins.
And if you have to pinpoint like three cultural tools every middle manager should master, what are they and why should they master those?
Yes. So for me, the most important one is to come up with a set of behaviors and rules and expectations within the team that are actually made very explicit and being written down. I call this our team playbook. And usually you don't come up with that as a middle manager by yourself, but you sit down with your team together and define the rules of engagement, right? Make your implicit expectations and your implicit values, make them explicit as a team, right? So be very, very clear with your team what they can expect from you. Be very clear with your team what you expect of them, not just in an operational kind of way, but also in like in the in between things. Like I will give you a lot of trust, but be aware if you breach my trust, then it's going to be really, really hard to earn it back. For example, I expect you to be absolutely honest with me. You can expect from me that I will invest my time in coaching you and helping you grow. Things like that, right? And then we're talking about the rules of engagement, meaning how do we make decisions as a team? What does good feedback look like for us? What do we do if somebody breaches our expectations or these rules of engagement? And what do we definitely not tolerate as a team? And create those things together with your team. This kind of document and explicit playbook creates so much safety for your team. And I think that, and we all know that the psychological safety has an incredible impact on how well your team performs, right? But in most of the teams and the most companies that I see, all of these things are kept under wraps or are completely implicit, and nobody really knows them. And if you make them explicit, everyone can call upon those and revert back to those. So I love that. That is my number one go-to tool that I recommend to any middle manager out there. And the second step to that is to create a safety contract that can also be part of that playbook, right? So again, do this together with your team. Don't just hope that they feel safe with each other. Agree together on what safety means by answering questions like, what do you need to feel safe to disagree, to feel safe to make mistakes and learn from them? What do you need to feel safe to calling each other out? And then turn the answers to these questions into shared norms that become part of your playbook. And the third step, obviously, you have those very explicit rules, and norms and rules of engagement, and then you need to make sure to call out anybody who breaches that. And in the moment, not like a week later or a day later, you have to do this immediately. And I usually always advise to give personal feedback in a one-on-one, not in a big group. But depending on how big the breach is, you have to address it in the room so that everyone really understands, okay, this is not how we're doing things here. And if you're breaching those things, you're getting called out on. And as if you're really, really good at this, you will do this to yourself. You can, even if you breach it by accident, or it's a little bit manipulative, but you can also deliberately breach your own rules of engagement and then call yourself out in front of the entire team, saying, okay, guys, I know I've done this, and I know that this goes against the norms that we've set out for ourselves, and I sincerely apologize for that, and here's what I'm going to do differently from tomorrow on to make sure that this doesn't happen again. Obviously, if it's in a real scenario and not a deliberate mistake that you've made, this is so much more powerful. But it clearly shows that you are not above the rules, and that everybody, including yourself, has to adhere to these norms. Otherwise, they'll get called. Yeah, they'll get called out for it. This is you're basically setting your own jurisdiction in a way, right? And I love this trifecta of trifecta is the word, not tricepta. Trifecta of steps to um, to really set the tone and the consequences for your team culture.
And Paulina, I would imagine, like, with your work at the Culture Code Foundation, you guys talk to a lot of companies, right?
Yeah.
So you hear a lot about like culture, if it can change things, how it can change things, and blah blah blah. So based on everything you hear out there, what's one popular myth about culture change that you will love to shut down once and for all?
I think the one that, in this context for today, the one that I already addressed before, right? That the culture change has to come from the top. Again, yes, that's the ideal scenario. And it is definitely the shortcut to a really strong culture is if you do have the backing from the top, from the top level executives, and if they actually are living, breathing role models for it. But for sure, if you're a team lead, you can build a counterculture or a subculture that really thrives. And again, super often, these small pockets of excellence become the proof of concept that the whole company ends up copying because they see them working. And they see that the people are performing better. They see that the people are healthier. That they have less. These teams have less turnover. That these teams are just next level. And because that can happen, and it does happen, I've seen it happen time and time and time again. For every middle manager out there, stop waiting to create the culture that you want to see. Just do it.
And again, like we talked about, like, already here in this episode here, we and then yeah, I'm gonna say we because both you and I have been middle managers, right? And
Yes.
we both know the struggle, like, again, being this filter in between the C levels or the executives and then the team beneath it, right?
Yes. And
Um,
the struggle is real.
the struggle is so real because,
Yeah.
again, if you see a toxic culture from the executives, you have to be the one that absorbs it and actually turns it into a great nourishing culture for the team below it. So you have to absorb all of that and bear
Yeah.
it on your shoulders and can't just like pass it on, right? And that actually takes a toll on people.
It does take a toll, and it's a really good point that you're bringing this up, because yes, it does take a toll. It can be very excruciating, and at the same time, you will if you're in a culture like the one that you've described, then what comes from the top will always land on you in any way. And if you do, and you could just let it trickle down to your people, right? But what does that improve for you or for anybody else? And on the other hand, if you do just deliberately design a better culture for your own team, then you have moments of respite. You have moments of beauty. You have moments of connection. You have moments of feeling like your work actually matters and has be a positive impact on people. And we all at the core of our being, us humans are designed to want to be able to do that. So it is a choice, and it is a clear choice to keep those things off your team as much as you possibly can, because it's going to not only help them, it's also going to help you feel more purposeful, feel more fulfilled, feel more impactful, feel more happy at the end of the day than if you just let the shit show from above just run down through you and flow downwards.
Paulina, you know that swearing on our podcast is not good for the algorithm.
No, but sometimes I simply have to do it.
Okay, Paulina, I don't know what's going on with our podcast here, because I think that every topic we're bringing up right now, the episodes just keep getting longer and longer because we have so much at heart to tell. So, like in the last week's episode or last week's taking, we're actually going to cut this into 2 episodes. So this is part 1 of 2 episodes. We have talked about like almost 50 minutes now. So let's do this as a 2-part episode for everybody listening to this one. Then the next episode is going to come out next week. But before we leave, as always, please tell our listeners, like, how can they reach out to you? How can they get just a tiny fraction of all your passion about company culture, right? So how can they find you?
For everyone out there, you can always find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Instagram. And please do reach out if you have a story to share that you want to tell on our podcast, or that you want us to tell on our podcast about you in an anonymous way. We would love to hear your story and your feedback as well. And you can also find my company at culturecofoundation.com. And as I mentioned last week, we now have the opportunity for individuals to join our most popular, that's the word, our most popular programs as an individual, not just as a team, because again, you can start changing things for yourself by getting active. And you can, but also if you're interested in that kind of thing, you can also just DM me on Instagram or on LinkedIn, get more information. I would love to hear from you. Would love to be in touch with our listeners and see if maybe I can just give you a little bit of advice on your specific situation.
And we're going to put all the handles in the show notes. So,
Thank you.
So just click on the show notes. You can reach out to me or Paulina. And then let's take it from there. Paulina, thank you again. I will see you next week for the second round of this passionate topic for both of us, right?
I kind of get the feeling that we are passionate about a lot of topics, Lars.
Oh yes. Okay, everybody listening out there, thank you for listening in, and remember to give us a like, give us a follow, and please put a comment either on YouTube or in your favorite podcast app if you have anything to share with us. Thank you for listening.
Yeah. And one thing that I want to tell you, Lars, one of our listeners,
you just can't keep it short, right?
No, I can't, because this is amazing. One of our listeners sent me a message this week, and my shout out goes to you. You know exactly who I mean. Her Spotify rap came in, and we are her most listened to podcast of the year.
I'm gonna do the heart here. Everybody just listening in. I'm gonna do the heart sign with my hands. I love it. I really love it.
That was amazing. So now I'm gonna shut up. See you next week.
Yes. See you next week. Bye, everybody.
Bye.